Hi there. Some of you may have seen a video or a couple of videos I did about a month or so ago demonstrating an in-running scalping technique. I'll leave the links in the description under the video if you want to go back to those. Since then, Darren Hall at Green Up TV has also tried the same technique, this time using the Geek's toy. Since that video was made, I've had a number of inquiries asking for a more detailed explanation of what was going on. So this is what the purpose of this video is, just to give you a quick overview of how I'm going about doing things and why I'm going about doing things. I'm sure a lot of you will understand the videos in the past anyway, so by all means you can skip ahead, but I think I'll take this straight from basics in actual fact. For those of you who are not familiar with my blog, I use Linux as my preferred operating system, which limits me to what trading software I can use. Fairbot is my preferred option. It runs very well under Wine, which is an open source project to provide a Windows compatible API to allow Linux users to run Windows software on their machines. So I tend to use Fairbot. Some of the settings and so on that I'll be specifying in Fairbot are fairly common, and you'll find them no doubt within your own trading application. So by all means have a browse around those to find the corresponding setting. So first things first. Why do I use a stake as a liability as opposed to a back bet? That was the first question that's been asked, and to be honest, it allows me to control my staking. Let me just open up the first race of today, which is the 10 to 2 at Ayr. First of all, you'll notice that I am on simulation mode while I'm doing this, because I'm actually deliberately hopefully going to be losing some money. So I don't actually want to end up losing real money. First things first, I'm sure you're aware of the idea that if we lay, let me move this out of the road and rescale it a little bit so that we can see what's happening. Get that out of the road. There we go. If I have a stake, let's just say a lay stake of £50. Now if I have that set there as a lay stake of a liability, if I lay Jungle Cat at 3.3, okay, we see that if he wins, I'll lose my £50 and I'll win 20%. So in other words, that's my stake in the traditional sense. £21.74. This here is actually including, is after commission's been taken off. So that's my liability there. Okay, ignore this. There's a little bit of corruption in the latest version of Wine that I've installed on this machine. It's corrupting the display down here. I haven't had time to investigate why, I haven't had time to roll back to an earlier version of Wine where that corruption didn't happen. And while I've been talking, I wish I'd been doing real money now. I've just earned £1.53. Okay, let me reset things so that doesn't happen. And let me just first of all switch off simulation mode and then switch it back on, and that'll clear this race so we don't have anything in there. Okay, so what happens is if I lay Jungle Cat at 3.6 for £50, that's my winnings if Jungle Cat loses, and that's where I'll lose £50 if he goes on to win. Now the thing about this is, in this strategy I'll be laying any number of runners. So for example, if I now go in and lay the second favourite here, okay, I will end up, if neither of those win, I'll win £37. if either of those do win, I'll lose 31. The point being is, in this particular case, we'll be trading out. Right? So let's just trade out. I'm hoping that let's trade out, see if we can trade out for a 0. If I switch to the ladder and we'll put a lay in. Well, that looks as if it's going to go up. Let's see if Jungle Cat comes in. The point being here is that if Jungle Cat then comes up a little bit and actually gets traded out at 3.65, I'll still have a £50 liability on the WOW signal. So by laying to a liability, so your lay stake is a liability, what that means is that if you lay every single horse to that liability, each individual runner will have a liability of £100 on it. But by definition, only one runner can win the race. Therefore, although you've got 5 bets in the market, your maximum liability is what your lay stake is, as long as you've only laid each runner once at any one particular point in time. Now that's useful because it means that I can just go in there and not think about my stake or anything. I can just go blitzing in there, laying all the runners or all the ones that I want to lay, without worrying about what my actual stake is. So you'll see down here the stake in the conventional sense on the WOW and the Jungle Cat are much the same, simply because of their odds. But if we go to Doc Charm and I lay that, I've got a lay stake of £2.38. Liability is still 50. So that's the first important point of using this technique by laying first, is that you can quickly go in and without caring about stake for each individual runner at the particular odds that they're at the moment, and by doing that we can quite happily go into any number of runners throughout the race, whether it's a race like this where there's only 5 runners, or whether it's a much more populated race. So that's the first thing. So the first rule in this particular strategy is decide how much money you are prepared to lose on this race, in case your computer blows up, you lose your internet connection, in case you lose your internet connection, or Betfair goes down or whatever. And depending on the races that you do this in, whether it's if it's a 6 furlong race like this one is, it will be over in within a minute, or just over a minute. So you need to be prepared to lose that stake. So that's the other reason for doing it as a liability. It means that in any one particular instance, assuming that you only lay any one individual runner once, the liability on that, the total liability on that runner can only ever be £50, or whatever your stake is that you're using, can only ever be the value of your overall stake. And it can never be more than that, because ultimately if you've lost connection or whatever, the race is going to continue. There'll be one runner, so all your other runners will provide a return, and the only one that will have a liability on it is that one runner, and if it goes on to win, that's where you've lost. So you control your your overall liability by using this particular technique. Right. So the other things we look at is to scalp this automatically. So we don't want to go chopping and changing all the time, and it's certainly in a larger field it's a lot more difficult to do so in a ladder situation, because these ladders are moving up and down, and also you take up a lot of screen real estate by specifying a number of ladders and so on. So that takes up more space. It's a lot easier to do this technique on the grid. Okay, now that's us squared off all these. Now let's actually quickly do a scalp. There's not much time in this, and see how we get on. And if you've watched the original videos and I've messed up there, can anybody tell me what I've done? I'll tell you what I've done. I've forgotten to put the swap option on. So it'll be rather fortunate if I actually win anything here. Good job we're in simulation mode. That was the reason for putting it in simulation mode. Yeah, so the basis of the scalping technique, if you've seen the original videos, is to essentially go into the market somewhere less than the current price on the current horse. And hopefully as the race progresses, it comes down in price, grabs our money, and then pops back up again. That's the principle. So let me just switch that back on, and obviously we need to go to the next race. Okay, so the idea here is that we have it swapping. So in this case, our lay bets will actually go in via the left hand side and not in the conventional right hand side, and that's what happened in that last race. I forgot to put my swap on, so in actual fact I wasn't laying, I was backing first, which wasn't the intended object of the exercise. Anyhow, let's start that again. So what we'll do is you could use this technique pre-race, right? So for example, if you think that the market or each of these runners is going to bounce a tick, set your trading options to an offset of 1, put it to smart bets if you wish, and then just go in and lay all of these. Now as those bets are matched, the corresponding closing bet, in this case a closing back bet, is automatically put into the market. So you can see here we've actually got one that's been traded out. Men don't cry. There's another one just come in, Bell Art. And so you could sit here for the next 5 minutes or so until the race progresses to see if any of these are matched. Now, of course, the danger is if you've laid something here, it may actually carry on going down and never be traded out prior to the race starting, and that of course is always going to be a problem. So what we are going to do is to use this technique in running. Okay, but before we do that, let's have a look at the types of things that you need to consider. First of all, as you've seen here, pre-race, I've stuck the lay bets in and just left them there to see if they get matched. I wouldn't necessarily want to do that in running. So what I tend to do is to set the fill or kill. Now you can set the fill or kill to whatever you like. Couple of things here. First off, the higher the fill or kill, the longer your initial lay stays in the market. The rule of this particular strategy is that you only lay a runner once until it's closed off. Once it gets closed off, you can go in and lay it again if you wish. There's no harm in doing that, but you can only have one open lay on each runner at any one particular time. That's the first important rule of this strategy. So the higher your fill or kill setting, the longer that lay will be in the market, and therefore the less opportunity there is for going back in and laying it again once it's been traded out. So the higher the fill or kill, you effectively reduce the number of bets that you place into the market. And there's lots of situations where a lay may never get matched if the runner's running badly and he's at the tail end of the field. So you don't necessarily want to wait a large number of seconds to have an opportunity of going back in and laying that runner again. Okay, I would tend to suggest anywhere between 5 and 10 seconds is probably the optimum, but that's something that you would need to judge, and that may actually vary depending on the length of the race or the type of the race. Again, that's something that you need to experiment with. Secondly, we have the trading option. Again, an automatic offset of 1. There's a variety of options there available to you. If you're only looking for a tick, that's fine, but you want to have lots of those. So you want to have the opportunity of being able to go in and placing lots of bets, which may actually indicate why you need to think about keeping that relatively low. But for any given stake liability, the smaller your tick offset, the more successful trades you need to get a decent profit, assuming that all your trades are successfully completed. If you increase the offset, each individual trade will contribute more to the profit. But the higher the offset, the greater the risk of you finding that one of your lays doesn't get traded out and it carries on shortening and ultimately wins the race. So that can actually reduce it increases the number of races that you will have where you have to accept a loss. That's what I'm trying to say. However, when it works, you can vastly increase your profit. And again, that may vary depending on the type of race. For example, in a long race, where for the first half of the race there's very little happening, you may find that going for 1 or 2 ticks is the preferred option. Whereas in a short race, you may find that chancing your arm and going for a greater tick offset, you may find more success with that, risking the fact that you will increase the number of races and where you have to trade out for a loss. And if you try to do that on shorter races, particularly 5 and 6 furlong sprints, on 5 or 6 furlong sprints, you will find that you will get situations where a runner just suddenly shortens and doesn't go out again, and it's very difficult for you to actually get that traded out for a loss, and you may find yourself looking at the maximum loss possible, not necessarily your lay stake liability, i.e. in our case here 50, but you may actually be looking at it'll be reduced slightly because of the profit that you've achieved from the other horses, assuming that they've got matched. Right, what I'm going to do is clear this and we'll have a quick go at this race. Let me just bring up some pictures. Okay, so we're on this race here, 1.3, so we'll look at in here for about a minute, and what we do is we lay off at lower prices, hoping that the runner will shorten a little bit, grab our money and bounce back up again. So we're looking for 1 tick moves. Okay, so there we go, we've had a couple done. Carry on, go in again. Okay, and we don't get involved until our various lays have been cleared again. Okay, and we don't get involved in here, he's still got a liability, so carry on with that. Keeping an eye on the time, we're coming up for a minute, so I would suggest that you should think about getting out fairly soon. So let's just green up for £2, and there we go. Okay, I'm going to turn the sound off on this because it's in my earphones, headphones at the moment. Okay, so there's a very, very simple explanation. So what we'll do next, in the next race, we'll increase our offset a little bit, just to let you see the difficulty. I'm trying to find a race where I can get into difficulties. That's what I'm trying to do, just to let you see what happens when things go wrong. But the other rule that you need to think about is, when do you get out? Once you've done your trades, do you carry on trading to the last furlong? Extraordinarily risky, that. Or do you get out a certain time? Or do you stop trading and let the race carry on? My general rule of thumb is to look to certainly stop getting involved in the market by halfway around the race, when it really starts to heat up. The option at that point is to get out there and then and accept any losses or profit that you have. Or the alternative is, if you've still got open lays in the market come halfway point, do you let the race run a little bit further, in the hope that one of those lays starts to drift again and the closing back bet gets matched? Certainly that's something I would do, but I think it's important that you're watching the racing. Try and get a feel for the actual race itself. So I'm going to pause the video at this point and wait till the next race comes along, which is going to be the 2:10. Okay, so I'll be back shortly. Okay, back again, and we're coming up to the 2:10, and you'll see it's a novice hurdle, and it's a horrible race. These are horrible odds to be playing with, but we'll do it anyway for the purposes of this exercise. But I wouldn't advise you get involved in races like this until you're happy with the technique and you're watching the race. Okay, let's get some video up. Excuse me. No sound. Okay, this time around I'm going to increase the trading offset, just for the sake of argument, and we'll increase this a little bit since it's a long race. So again, the same principle applies. We're looking at laying to a fixed liability. Each runner, or any runners of our choice, there's absolutely no point in getting involved in these guys. One, you run into the situation where your bets will take longer to go in, because the actual backside of the bet will be less than a £2 minimum, so you'll have a greater delay of your bets going in. So it's not really worth getting involved in these unless they start to come down significantly. It's really only the first 2, 3 that you really want to get involved in. So the first guy we'll need to really pay attention to is a short price favourite, Vesperal Dream. So that's him there, and Lexicon Lad. They're the 2 short ones, and that's the third favourite. Where is he? There he is there. That's him up there. So it's that chap and that chap there that we need to think about. Okay. Now this is a 2 mile 6 furlong race. As a very rough rule of thumb, a 2 mile race will take 4 minutes. In other words, the 2 miles, convert that into minutes, 2 minutes is roughly halfway around. So a 2 mile 6 furlong race, again rough rule of thumb, 6-7 seconds per furlong. So we're looking at approaching 3 minutes for the halfway point. Obviously that's a very much a rule of thumb. If they're ploughing through heavy ground, it'll take longer. So just be aware of that. It's worthwhile watching the video and listening to commentary. But that's what we use as a rough guide. So come the halfway point, we want to think about getting out, or at least not getting involved any longer. Okay, and I'm going to concentrate on the top 3 in the market there, unless these guys start to come in towards 20 or below 20. Okay, so we're going to be in for 10 seconds each bet. We're looking for 5 ticks. That'll give you an idea of the different effect that you can get. So that's the first one, Max Lexicon Lad. So we want him to go up to 3.3. All our lays have disappeared now, so we can go back in, but not onto Lexicon Lad. So we go back on to Vespro Dream and the sweetener. Okay, and that's Vespro Dream being matched now. Now you'll see that the effect that has right away, in that Lexican Lad still has a lay on him down here, but he's in the green at the moment. But that's purely because that's a short price favourite we've just laid. So you have to be aware of that and not inadvertently go back in there and lay Lexican Lad again, because you'll end up with 2 lays sitting on them. Okay, that's all our lays have disappeared and the sweetener has been cleared out. So let's go back into the sweetener again. These guys here are doing nothing. We're a minute into the race. How are we getting on with regard to the favourite and so on? Well, that's the favourite there. Okay, I'm not doing it. Neither of these two that we laid earlier have actually come up, and that's fairly common, and particularly for a novice hurdle. It can take ages for this chap to drift, if he's going to drift at all, where there's a short price favourite, and you quite often find he has to make a major blunder in running. And now you'll find that we've developed into a 2-horse race here. We're 2 minutes round. It's not looking good. All the other runners look out of it, according to the market. We've still got our favourite there, and the second favourite is in the lead. So these guys aren't going to shorten. So going for 5 ticks in a market like this is not really a good idea. So it's arguable that after 2 minutes, we're halfway through the race, we should get out. Okay, but what I'm going to do is, let's pretend that we got out there for a loss of £8, but I'm going to let this run just so that you can see the numbers. So really, these two either have to knock each other over, or something has to come flying in to allow us to get a profit here. We're looking for, we're looking for Lexican Lad to go up to 3.3, and we're looking for the favourite Vespro Dream to go to 1.94. That doesn't seem very much, does it? We're still looking at nearly 20 ticks here. It needs to go up, and that's a lot, unless it has a major faux pas in running. So you can see we're 3 minutes into the race now. We're still looking at trading out for around about £8 profit. Sorry, £8 loss, I beg your pardon. And all the runners, when you look at that video there, all the runners, they're all close together, so you can argue that they're all still within a chance. But the market doesn't think so yet. This guy here, he's come down to the low 20s, but that's as low as he's been. Everything else has been discounted. And you can see that from the race here. The second favourite is still in the lead. The short price favourite is just tracking him quite happily. So now we're starting to see, right, okay, the favourite had a little bit of a blunder. He's been matched out. So we've now got Lexican Lad. Now here's where I was talking about earlier. If you let this thing run, there's been a couple of successful trades on the sweetener and Vespro Dream. So your overall liability is no longer £50. It's been reduced by the profit from those individual trades. Now we find is, as we're coming into the end of the race, we really need this guy here to start failing. We can still trade out for a relatively small amount. Do we let it run? Favourites catching them. Do we let it run? Do we let it run? Yes, we jolly well do. You'll see that we could actually trade out, and that's it being taken, and there's our profit. So there's an option available to you. You have 3 things to decide. 1, when do you stop trading? And that varies depending on the type of race it is, the length of the race, but typically you might think about stop trading halfway around. The next question that you have to decide then is, if you've got a certain time where you're going to stop trading and stop getting involved in the market, do you trade out then, or do you let it run? Now you saw from there that if we had traded out, we could have traded out for a guaranteed loss of around about £8. And that situation was the same for virtually all the way around the race, well into well past, I should say, well past our initial halfway trade out point. We could still trade out for a loss of about £8. But as shown in there, leaving the race to run, you still have the option of possibly trading out later and still getting a profit. Keeping in mind, however, that that's a risky strategy, because there is a chance that your loss, your red, will simply get worse, and it will be more and more difficult. The longer you let the race run, it will be more and more difficult to get out for a minimum loss, and that loss may run away with itself. And that's particularly true the shorter the race that you do. So using this technique over, say, a 5 furlong or a 6 furlong sprint is pretty risky, because halfway down 5 furlongs is only going to be about 30 seconds. So one, you'll only have a chance to do perhaps 2, possibly 3 bets, depending on your fill or kill setting, on each runner. But then you've only got 20-30 seconds to trade out, and the market is going haywire. And what you'll find is, even though you think you've actually got a green to trade out on, by the time your various bets are submitted to the market's moved on and left you behind, and so you'll still end up with a red, even though you were, when you clicked the button, you were in a green profitable position. So anyway, that's a closer overview of the strategy that I laid out last month. A lay stake set up as a liability allows you to place a lay on each individual runner whilst keeping control of your overall liability should your computer blow up or Betfair crash or whatever. So set that to what you are prepared to lose on that particular race, with the intention of never intending to lose that money, but that's a safety factor in there if you like that. Set your thing to swaps so that you're asking for, in the grid view, asking for smaller prices and hoping that they will be matched by the market whilst the race is progressing. Experiment with your tick offset and experiment with your killer fill. That will determine how many bets that you can place in the market during the process of the race, and that will determine the profit from each successful trade you'll get. Just suck it and see. Have a play, see how you get on. Let's have a quick look at right, here we go for a sprint. I'm just about to start. We'll do this one as well, a sprint. So I think what we'll do is we shall reduce that to a silly number. Again, this is just a play to let you see, and let's increase that to 7. So our bets are only going to be in the market for 3 seconds, I beg your pardon, and we're being greedy and looking for a bigger offset. 6 furlongs, that will be approximately 40 seconds will be the halfway point. Excuse me. So once we come to around about 30 seconds or so, it's time to get out. So here we are. Let's have a look. Just put bets on all of those and see how we get on. So no lays left. 17 seconds gone. No runners left. And I think we need to start thinking about getting out soon. Come on, get those matched. One matched. That's the trouble one. Trading out now will give us £7 guaranteed red. Is he going to increase? Is he going to increase? Doesn't look like it. We need to get out. It's not looking like it, so we need to get out. Is it? This is what sprints are like. This giving him a fright, but we're still going to end up with a loss. Trade out as soon as we can, and we end up with a loss there. and then we've traded out just at the wrong time because the one we traded out on has gone into win. And that's how frenetic a sprint can be, and that's why you have to be aware. Granted, we were being greedy looking for 7 ticks. But that's an example of using the technique in a variety of different races, sprints and long races. I'll have a quick look at this one. Okay, this is a 1 mile 3 furlong. We'll do this as a last example. We'll pause that and I'll come back in 5 minutes or so. Okay, back again with a cup of tea in hand. So we've got a 1 mile 3 furlong maiden stakes. Again, it's not a great race to play with, to be perfectly honest. But as a last example, we'll do that. So what we're going to do is increase our fuller kill, reduce our trading offset. Again, it's really just to give you a feel. These are things that you need to play with, get a feel for how the market develops, but you're going to have to do it over a whole load of races because every race is different, and see how it goes. So we're just waiting for these runners to load up. Same thing, we'll wait for the race to go in running. Again, these guys here, not worth getting interested in. He might be if he comes down a bit. So we're really looking at the top 4 in the market. We'll see how that goes. 1 mile 3 furlong race, so we're looking at something like 1 minute 20 as our get out point, and again, we'll see how the race goes, and you need to decide what you want to do. So we're looking at all the guys in blue, really, our main runners that we're going to trade, and then we've got these 2 here that are possibles. So we'll just wait for them to load. I'll put all the various links for the previous videos in the description. I'll also put a link to the video that Darren did over at Green Up TV, and of course, if you've got any questions, by all means either ask via the video channel or indeed pop across to the Bet Your Life sports trading blog, and let me know what you think. Well, number 3's playing up. He might not go actually. That's that one there, isn't it? Haley Turner on board. I'm just going to pause the video rather than wait for them to try and get this runner in, and I'll restart once the race is underway. Okay, ready to go, and we're off. Okay, so we're at 1 minute 3, so 1 mile 3 I should say, so that's about 1 minute 20 seconds. Stick in some bets, that one's okay, we'll ignore the bottom 3, and there's the first one taken. We need to wait for these lays to disappear, and then we can go in again. Same again. So we've got 2 that have been matched, so we can't get involved in those again until such times as they disappear. 46 seconds, 2 matched again. This one might become involved. So that's us a minute into the race. We've still got these 2 to get matched. Last time, and that is about it. This one's getting matched here. That's us all out. I didn't need to trade out myself at all. £5. There you go. So that's essentially the strategy in a nutshell. You need to play around with these numbers, play around with that number, because that affects how many bets you can get in. That affects your profit for each individual trade. The higher that number, the harder it is to get successfully traded out. The lower that number, the less time your bets are in the market, and consequently it reduces the chance of your actual lay getting matched in the first place. The higher that number, your bets are in the market for a lot longer, increases the chance of it getting matched, but it also decreases the number of times you can go back into the market, because you have to wait till all your lays have cleared. And that's the essence of the strategy. So I hope that makes things a little bit clearer for those of you who had questions. By all means, as I said, put a comment below in the video, and hopefully speak to you later. Bye now.